welcome. Welcome. This is our very first webinar of this new series called Ahead of the Curve, AOTC. And we explore in these webinars what makes great teams and what helps people do their best work. So I'm Anastasia from Space Refinery. We are a design and build studio based in Belgium, and we specialize in workspaces for people, culture, and growth. So this webinar series will explore the topics of what makes teams click, what supports us as colleagues in the hybrid era, when we are distributed and we can technically connect from all over the globe. So what does that mean as well for the companies of today and tomorrow? The next webinars will also cover the topics of collaboration, innovation, the evolving needs and tasks of people officers, so everyone who is managing other people and making sure that they are good in the companies, and neurodiversity, and many, many more. And today we will explore the strategic approaches to creating the sense of belonging in distributed teams with our guest speaker, Andrea. The way the session will work today is that we're going to have the keynote for a few minutes, where Andrea will guide us through these principles and guidelines. And then we're going to have the Q&A, where you can ask the questions. You can even unmute yourself if you want to. And you can also ask the questions throughout the presentation at any moment that you have any doubt, or you want to just take note of that, and we will address it during the Q&A session after the keynote. All right. So, Andrea, please take us forward.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm Andrea Strohmayr. I'm a culture strategist and an experience designer, and I'm super thrilled to be here. And I'll probably explain just for a moment, what does it mean to be a culture strategist and what does it mean to be an experience designer? So culture strategist means that I support organizations in intentionally building the culture they need in order to achieve their strategic goals. Because depending on what industry you're in, how you're financed, and what your pace is that you want to live, your culture is going to look very, very differently. So that's the foundation for everything that I do. And then I'm also an experience designer, where I create moments of togetherness where the people in an organization get to experience the culture at its best without culture being the obvious topic of such session. So these are kind of the two adjacent hats that I wear, and they will also influence and inform what I'm going to share with you today. So I'm going to share my screen with you. And just wait while it's loading. It's loading a long time. Okay, beautiful. So our topic for today is building systems of belonging in hybrid and distributed teams. So we have gained a lot over the last couple of years with the possibility of working distributed, working hybrid, remote, from anywhere. We've gained in flexibility and we've gained in freedom. But at the same time, we've also seen a massive increase in isolation, in loneliness, in disengagement, and in just a lack of connection. And together with that, what we are seeing is actually that the figures of burnout in Belgium alone are drastic. Over the last 5 years, we've seen an increase of 44% of people that are out of work because of burnout. And then when you look at that, you're an employer, you have people in your team who are on burnout leave. The accumulated cost for the employers, who are mainly the ones who carry that cost, of work-related depression in the EU is over 100 billion per year. So that's massive. And I think anyone who has a team and needs to fix the workload and distribute the workload when people are out kind of feels the pain and also sees the suffering it then puts on other people. So belonging is something I'm super passionate about because it is an antidote to all of this. It is an antidote to the feeling of isolation, disconnection, disengagement, and the suffering that comes from that. So there are many studies, and trust me, I've been down a whole rabbit hole looking at all the empirical data that just proves that strong social connection lowers the risk of depression and burnout drastically. And it's not just mental health that is better when people experience a sense of belonging, it is actually also physical health. So belonging is much more than this yum, warm, fuzzy feeling that we get to experience when we have it. It is actually something you can intentionally design and build if you know how to. And this is what this talk is all about. So you will walk away with today with a clear understanding, first of all, why does belonging protect your teams from burnout? And then I'm going to share a system on how you can strategically build belonging in distributed teams. And I will share 2 practical formulas, one more from the culture strategy side and one more from the experience design side. And in all of that, I will also share a very powerful lever that we all have, that we somehow seem to have forgotten about these last couple of years, that can really make the difference between a group of individuals working in an organization and a real team. There is a lot of research that has been done around this, and the core fundamental conditions that need to be met in order for people to experience a sense of belonging is that we need, on the one hand, frequent positive interaction, and on the other hand, stable, enduring relational bonds. So let me explain a bit on what is behind this. On the one hand, you need frequency, predictability. So there are studies that show just by the mere fact that you see your neighbors a lot, it makes you like them more than people that you see less often. So there's something to just the presence of other people that is frequent and predictable. And it doesn't even have to be extremely positive interactions. It just needs to be neutral or slightly positive interactions that people need. So big case for frequency. On the other hand, people need to feel like someone cares for them, and they need to feel like them being there makes a difference in that system. So if you have frequent interaction, people hanging out in the office, seeing each other a lot, but you do not have the depth of the quality time of topics and moments that people care for, people will not experience a sense of belonging. And this is something that we see a lot at the moment. Organizations kind of ordering people back to the office, all these return to office mandates, and then people come to the office and they say like, oh, it's great that someone says hi and let's grab a coffee, and in the end they go home and say like, why did I commute for? This didn't do anything for me. On the other hand, if you have only quality moments that are huge and meaningful, but you hardly see people, you will thoroughly enjoy those moments, but it is not going to give you a real sense of belonging. And the real sense of belonging really does a lot to our nervous system. It helps us sync up with other people's nervous systems. It makes us more resilient because of that, and it allows us to take on more and be able to perform better as well. So these are the minimum 2 conditions that you need to meet in order for people to experience the sense of belonging. That makes a difference when it comes to well-being, and that sets you up as a defense against burnout. So what I want to share is, how do you create this? And this is more my strategic culture side that is behind this formula. You need to have clarity on 3 different elements. The first is routines. The second is rituals. And the third one is rhythm. So routines are clear, repeated practices that give your team a structure and a psychological baseline safety. This is anything. This is tactical meetings. Those are the moments where you discuss what needs to be done, where is the project, what might be hindering, how you're going to share the work, and how are you going to produce the outcome that you have. So tactical meetings, also strategic meetings where you discuss on how do we want to work together. Do we do a 2-week sprint or a 3-week sprint? What is the deadlines that we're aiming for and so on. So anything that is task related, output related, work related. That gives you a lot of that frequent interactions. But then you cannot live on that alone if you want to have people to feel like a sense of belonging to your organization. You also do need rituals. Rituals are those moments that really have a meaning to us. Those are moments that carry emotional significance. And the focus of these moments is actually not on getting something done. It is really on the being together, gelling together, being human with each other, and creating those bonds that will carry you through hard times in the routines, in the work, and so on. And it is absolutely crucial that you have a clear distinction between those 2. So prior to the webinar, we had asked a couple of people as in what are their favorite moments when it comes to being with the team. And the one that stood out the most was people saying, I like to work in creative collaboration. So creative collaboration is an interesting one because it can either be a routine or it can be a ritual. But it is absolutely necessary that you make the distinction between which one are you engaging with. So if we look at a routine, if you have a team that is really, really great at coming up with new ideas and really your culture is all about innovation and so on, then it might be a routine meeting where you get together and we look at industry trends and like, what can we make out of this in order to advance our product? Which new technology can we get in? How are we going to experiment with this? And then it is a routine meeting because routine doesn't equal it's not fun, but it is output geared. Or you can say, actually, in our team, creative collaboration, people just have so much creative energy and probably we're working on some projects that are more in the delivery phase where the ideation is already done. Then we can get together and just say, like, what new things are you learning? What are you experimenting? What are you curious about? And then becomes more of a learning format or something else where people bond, but where it's not geared towards producing a concrete output towards your organization. So these two different things are elements that you absolutely need in order to have these two core elements of belonging. And then the last one in this slide, which is rhythm, is absolutely crucial if you want to help your team battle with the mental overload that they often have. Because as Katja mentioned, Katja, the Space Refinery CEO, mentioned recently, we are moving from an accidental hybrid phase into an intentional hybrid phase. And so it should no longer be the question as in, do I have to attend this meeting? Oh, this week this meeting is at 3 a.m., but next week it's on a Friday at 9 a.m. and so on. You want to create a rhythm that is predictable for people and that really sets the heartbeat of your team on when they come together, with the clear distinction of what are routine meetings, what are rituals, and what are the expectations. But having the rhythm allows you to lower the mental load around all the togetherness moments that you're creating, because then it doesn't become I have to think about it, I have to actively opt into something every time, but it becomes a default, which requires much less brain space and allows people to just be there because they've already bought into it once. So that's the first formula that I want to share with you. 3 R's: routines, rituals, and rhythms. And then I did promise a bit of a hook before, and that was a strategic lever that we have and that we're not using. So we have gone a bit overboard these last couple of years with goal setting. There was a huge drive from people who feel they need to see what people are doing in order to trust that the work is happening, that they've invested a lot of energy and time into creating new KPIs that people know what to work towards to, in creating new OKR processes, and making sure that every single person has the clarity as in what does success look like in this organization, what am I supposed to contribute me as an individual. But that is also the problem. The main focus of the goal setting that has happened over the last 2-3 years in the majority of the organization that I work with is actually focused on individual goals. So what we end up with is individuals who optimize their daily routines so that they can work best in the best place, so that they're most productive and work on their own goals. But actually, we find ourselves with groups of individuals that are called a team, but that don't share anything. They don't have a shared mission. They don't have anything shared that they are working towards to. And therefore, they also don't care that much about each other. And we've seen that care is a fundamental element in a sense of belonging. So the not so secret lever that we all have is to look at what are we actually rewarding. If we're only rewarding individual performance, it doesn't surprise me that nobody has that sense of belonging. So what you want to be doing instead is you want to be setting goals, common goals, shared goals, that not even the most talented individual in your organization can achieve by themselves. So instead of purely focusing on, for example, saying a person in your talent acquisition team should reduce the time within which candidates hear back from you, You want to look at the bigger picture and say, like, let's look at the ENPS, the Employee Net Promoter Score. And let's set a shared target where we want to increase that by 10%. And all of a sudden, it's no longer that individual that works in their corner on that small piece of your puzzle. It is everybody that needs to pull together in order to move the needle to the target that you have set. So common goals make people care. They provide guidance because you recognize how people contribute, not just what they contribute. So it's also reinforcing your culture and the behaviors you want to see and the type of performance you want to see. And then there's also a big myth buster. We see a lot of people, team leads saying, oh, I just want my people to have a nice moment together. And I would say kudos to you for wanting that. But at the same time, having a nice time isn't necessarily the recipe for people to really bond strongly with each other. There are many studies that show when teams are faced with adversity, with real challenges, that forges them much closer together than any good time they could possibly ever have. So my 3R/4R formula for you, which lies on routines, rituals, rhythm, and then the question, what is it that you reward? Okay, now I am curious. Before I share a next formula with you, I would like you to think back, probably, let's take a time frame of the last 4 weeks. Think about what was a moment where you really felt connected with your team, where you just like walked away and said, oh, this was so nice. Take a moment to think. And then I'm curious, and I ask you to share in the chat, what was that moment where you really felt connected with your team? Okay, nice. Working on a new team activity that is about your team. Yes, a hell yes to that. And I'm going to explain why. Often the reaction that I get when I share this framework is that people say, oh, but that's a lot of effort. That's a lot that you need to do. But when you do it with your team, it actually becomes part of the process. It becomes part of building this together, and you develop that sense of shared ownership that is also going to carry you a long way forward. Okay, so I see someone is still typing. I'm going to wait for that. Suspense. If you're the one typing. Okay, that seems to be a longer thought process. Learning new unexpected facts about the team when asking questions about them that we wouldn't know about them. Yes, 100%. It is this getting to know each other, to come to information and knowledge in depth that you wouldn't otherwise have. Every icebreaker at the beginning of each meeting, nice. Icebreakers have a bad reputation for some reason, but actually they're really valuable. Love that. Okay, cool. Icebreakers, nice. Cool. So I'm going to share again, because now I want to move on to the more of the experience side of things. So what I've shared now is like, how can you build a system? How can you build a rhythm? How can you build a scaffolding for your team in order to experience a sense of belonging? But what I often realize is that people struggle with, like, how do I then design a moment or a ritual that really matters to people? How do I create something meaningful in that? And this is my experience design side of things that I'm going to explain now. So please do let me know if you can see my screen again.
Yes.
Yes, perfect. Okay, excellent. So the question is like, why do Pizza Fridays no longer do the trick? A founder that I work with already for a couple of years, they've recently brought back the Pizza Fridays, which were a thing before the pandemic. And they were utterly devastated because hardly anyone showed up. And they were like, yeah, but it's free food. And I was like, yes, free food, yes. But free food doesn't make anyone take an hour commute to the office in order to get a pizza. So how do you design moments of belonging that your people are actually keen on? The formula that I have for this is another 3, this time the 3 C's. It is co-creation, contribution, and challenge. So let me take the example of food, because sharing food is a big thing in many traditions. It's just something that brings us together, that we have a lot of experience with, of that being a tradition. Instead of going generic and saying like, oh, free pizza is great for everyone, in the co-creation phase, you want to get insanely curious about the dynamic that someone enjoys around a given topic. So when we had the creative collaboration before, what is it that people really care about? Is it actually the learning aspect? Is it the fact that they will, with that input, further a project? What is it that they really enjoy about it? Is it the playfulness and anything goes, and we can just throw ideas and it doesn't matter if they're realistic or not. We just want to play big for a moment. So when it comes to food, you want to understand, is it actually that people enjoy a specialty? I don't know, many people get into bread making, there are amazing bakeries around Brussels, and it's just like everyone has their little different thing. Is it about that? Is it that people thoroughly enjoy preparing food themselves and sharing it with others? Is it that people come from all different regions and countries and feel like, this is a thing, I miss that when I'm in Brussels. It's hard for me when I don't have that. And they want to prepare and share it with someone else because there's a whole history that is shared with us. So you want to get in the co-creation phase really insanely curious about what is the dynamic that people enjoy around something. So the mantra as designers, and I'm sure at Space Refinery you work with the same mantra, is like, you don't design for people without people. So always design with people. And that's what Anastasia just said. Her favorite moment was designing a new activity with the team, because then the team gets to have their say, they feel seen, they feel appreciated, and like that, you create per se already a meaningful moment. And then we had a big question in the preparation for this webinar where we were like, but on whose shoulders is this? Who's responsible for this? Who should own this? And it is true that most of the time the initiative comes from a team lead or comes from someone in a people and culture team. But actually the ownership of the actual ritual should be within the team. It doesn't have to be that they're in charge of everything, but let's say you're into good bread. Then let the ordering of your breakfast for your team be taken over by Anastasia this week and by Katja next week. And like that, they was like, I found this place, it's close to Chatelain. They have this new thing that they do. And then the excitement is already a very different one. And the way you bring in people to ritual, it's completely different than if someone just sends we will have a dream breakfast. And at the same time, what it does as well, once you have that small ownership and that element of pride as well, it automatically leads to the 3rd C, which is challenge. So you will have a light competition. If Anastasia found that amazing thing that everybody was raving about, and I'm the next in line in order to cater for great breakfast, the stakes are high for me. I will want to deliver as well. So I'm much more involved than I possibly would be if someone organizes this centrally and one person only owns this. So this is my 3C formula: co-creation, contribution, and challenge. And what I then often get is the question, but we have some people who are foodies, we have other people who are into sports, we have other ones that are really geeking about the newest tech. Does the entire team have to be involved in everything? And the answer is no, they do not have to be involved in everything. If you want to use that sense of belonging as an antidote to burnout, first of all, to make sure that your people are more resilient, have better mental health, it doesn't, first of all, have to be across the entire team. You get the entire team together when you have shared goals, and then that becomes a team because they have a shared mission, something to work towards too. It doesn't necessarily have to be a ritual. It's about having both of that. But then every now and then, and this is my 4th C, you need a moment where the entire team comes together. And that 4th C is celebration. And it's something that we can easily skip because it is incredibly hard to get it right. Yet, what it does is it marks milestones. It gives people a sense of orientation. It provides guidance, and it marks closure as well. It gives emotional closure to, we are celebrating this because this part of the project is done, and now we're looking forward to the next thing that we're doing. And what it also does, it gives people appreciation. And a lack of appreciation is the #1 reason on why people disengage from their work. So giving that recognition for a job well done, for a project achieved, is crucial for people to feel seen and appreciated and to be able to connect with their work and your organization. And when done right, on top of that, it also creates that shared identity. This is what we do. This is how we do things. I asked upfront, what are rituals that you enjoy in your families with your groups of friends? And I bet you have them. And I bet they have a cadence to it. And I bet they matter to you. And this is what you want to get to. And then in order to get a moment of celebration right, you can again use that formula of co-creation, contribution, and challenge, and come up with something that really matters to you. And it's great the picture is not showing you. I'm going to share. So you might be the loud extrovert people that love a champagne spraying party in order to celebrate something. But many organizations are actually not. So I have worked with a client who one of their core values, they had humbleness. They were cutting edge technology company that was really well reputed in their sector and appreciated by their partners. But they said, we want to stay humble. So instead of saying we do a big celebration that is very loud, we did a moment of appreciation where we silently put on a wall an envelope with every single employee's name. And we ask everyone to reflect back on the project and say, like, how did this person contribute? How did they make the project better? How did they make your life easier? What was their contribution? What do you appreciate them for? And people took those envelopes and they are still sitting on their desks, in the office, at home, wherever they're blue. It is a big motivator. So you can even create artifacts from that. So this was the second formula that I wanted to share with you, the 4 C's. And I do get that it is a lot what I'm sharing here. And it sounds so simple. It's like just 3 things or just 4 things here. So if you want your teams to feel connected, energized, and aligned again, and you want help in creating a belonging system, I'm offering a couple of 20 minutes belonging diagnostic calls where we'll just look at the reality of your team, and we will go out with 1 or 2 moments that you can immediately tweak in order to enhance your sense of belonging in your team. So now I'm curious to hear questions. This was just a very high-level explanation of how I work with organizations. Often these organizations are in transition, and that's when all of these rituals become much more important. And I'm curious to hear what your reality is and what questions you might have for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I really loved it. And I loved how every formula had a hidden bonus one as well. Thank you. That's always good to have a surprise. I had a question, especially for people like me who often work remotely. And you were talking about the rituals and like those moments where we just gel and bond, but these feel so much different when you are only connecting, like let's say on a call, and then it feels like a waste of time to be chit-chatting about things. But when you're in person, those are the moments where you get the connection. So how can we approach it? Because that's the reality of many more people as well. When you're connecting often online or with some team members who will be online only, and you will probably only meet them through the screen until some big team gatherings, how can we approach that as well? Those little moments that make us really, as you said, gel together.
So I feel when we are gathering in person, we are often having these small moments where I see you, we're entering the door together, and then we're having a small chat as in how are you doing before we actually get to the real gathering. And when we meet as remote teams or as distributed teams, oftentimes we don't have these moments because there is a mismatch between the energies that we have. And so my biggest advice when it comes to that is to intentionally bring back those moments. So it might be that in a team that you ask a question and you just ask to chat with just the person next to you. And if you have a couple of people that are remote, you just put them in breakout rooms so that it's really small groups and immediately have that level of contribution. I'm seen, I'm heard, I have something to say. It matters that I'm here. because otherwise it can become too anonymous too easily, and then people just are like, yeah, what's the point? Why should I do this? What I'm here for?
Yes, that feels really personal. Thank you so much. Yeah, so Matteo is asking who should own the rituals and anticipation moments. You already started talking about it in the presentation.
Yeah.
It's kind of everyone's responsibility as well, but any practical tools that we can use maybe to be a bit more like bottom up as well? Do we suggest something? Do we send an email to an HR person? How would that work practically if we want to actually do something about it?
So I would say most of the time the reality is that there are some people who have an affinity for these kind of things and others that struggle a bit more with it. So if you are a person in people and culture and you see like there is a team that has a team lead that just like struggles a bit with this and doesn't manage to create these moments for the team that matters, then I would suggest that you as a person from the people and culture team work together with that team lead in order to have that exploration. What does fun look like? Not only fun, what matters to the people, and have this discussion with them. But it can totally also be something that is bottom up, that someone in the team says like, hey, I have an idea, who is up for it? And then you see who has the resources to do this at the moment. With that shared ownership, often we have peak moments that are, I would say, in the calendar year, but then often we also have like peak moments that are individual to different teams, to different functions and so on. And if you have that shared ownership of the process, once you have designed it, it's much easier to say like, listen, I do not have the bandwidth to organize this month, but someone else can. And the next month I will be free again in order to do this. So it is really about having these discussions as well on who is going to own it. So initiative, I would say, from the team lead, someone who really has an affinity or has an easy way to do that, someone within the team, people and culture team who feels like, in that team, we are lacking something and I can help here. So those are the three typical people who would initiate this in the design phase. And then the process as such, I would always suggest that it's co-owned.
Love that. So it gives the agency for sure. Thank you so much. We have another question. When you're working with organizations and teams, are you experiencing any resistance or antagonism? And if yes, how would you deal with that?
I would say resistance comes when there are many things that have been tried and nothing really hits the nail on the head. So there's a reluctance if we have first tried this and then somehow it disappeared and then we tried another format and then that was fun for 2 times, but then somehow we didn't do it anymore. And this is where the rhythms come in again. So you do not need to reinvent the wheel every time. It is important that you take that initial effort to understand what would good look like for our team, and that then it becomes a regular thing. You might do small tweaks every now and then, but the importance is that it becomes predictable on when this is happening, so that it's not like, now they're trying something new again and I have to commit to this again, I have to opt into this again. This is where rhythms are your best friend. But it sounds to me when there is resistance and when there is antagonism that people are kind of burned and they're tired of yet another thing that they ever should show up for.
Thank you. And it's, I think it also is a good approach whenever we already started talking about it before, whenever there are these high pressure moments, right? When you have just a lot of things going on and then yet another team thing, yet another this like fuzzy feeling thing is faced maybe a bit more with annoyance sometimes even, right? Especially now at the end of the year, we have to close so many things. So you would suggest to approach it this way?
So what I would suggest as well is to look at the intensity and the frequency. When you have moments of high intensity, you run them on low frequency, once a quarter, for example. If you do small elements that aren't that intense, you do them more often. And this is how you can balance that out.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We might have time for just one more question, if there is any. Otherwise, we will start wrapping up because we are right on time. We do have, I think maybe Matteo, we answered it a bit, or do you still feel like it's not clear? If belonging can be too strong, lead to antagonism or resistance. So maybe when it's pushed, is that what you mean?
I would love for Matteo to unmute himself and just give a bit of more context so that I can make sure that the answer is relevant.
Yeah.
An option.
Let's see. Yes, let me.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Okay.
No,
No,
some context that I understand. It sounds like you have some experience with this, but I'm not sure on what is really happening.
in my mind, it's just I'm wondering about the scenario if your team becomes like really strong, really cohesive with each other. Can that lead to like them resisting to change, or like if you as a leader want them to implement some new stuff around the office, and is that like a possible outcome that the team says no, like we have like the charge here? I know it's a really like obscure thing to say.
Oh, okay. So that it becomes overpowering and kind of like anti-manager dynamic. Okay, so I would say my first take on this is a manager is part of a team lead is part of the team. So it shouldn't be a us against them dynamic. And normally the co-creation really helps to bridge that, because it's not the team lead who does that and people's like, oh, I have to come there, or the team just doing stuff by themselves but not looking at the team lead. It is actually by looking at something that enthuses all of us that you create these moments that people get together, and then you bridge already that distance that might otherwise occur between the manager and the team. What you're describing does sound like a very dysfunctional dynamic, and I don't think it is. I don't think that the problem is the belonging in that case. I do feel there might be a lack of trust that is actually the real problem. Or there might be a lack of vision, that people feel like, oh, we're changing constantly and we can't follow anymore. We don't understand in which direction we're heading. So it doesn't sound to me like the belonging as such is the problem, but that there are other crucial elements that are missing, as in which direction are we heading in? Do we have a future together? Which are also questions that kind of are adjacent to this, but that aren't necessarily the core of belonging. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's and I apologize if the question was a bit weird. It's I always think about the scenarios and then I wonder. But thank you for your explanation.
Thank you so much for sharing. Brilliant. Okay, Geraldine said, thank you so much for the valuable information. Thank you so much for being here and sharing some of like your own traditions, rituals that you have, and for listening. And yeah, I'm available for questions also if you want to connect through LinkedIn. And I'm sure Anastasia is also going to send a follow-up email where you can get the presentation or the recording. And always happy to help people solve these problems, because it's something I'm really passionate about, because I also know the big difference that it can make when you get it right. So
yeah. Thank you so much, Andrea. That was absolutely invaluable. We learned so much, and we will be definitely sharing the slides and the recording as soon as it's processed with the attendees and with everyone who registered, and you will be able to rewatch it again. So we will also share the information about how to stay connected with us, so you can also register for the next webinars and the next things that are coming up, and for everything that Andrea has to offer as well, and to connect with her and get to know her a bit better as well. So we wish you, on behalf of Space Refinery and well, Andrea at this point as well, happy holidays and a very successful and hopefully also relaxed end of the year, where you can revisit everything that you've done this year and see the amazing steps you've taken towards your growth and professional and personal success, and then also plan for the next year as well. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the week.
Thank you.